Hey, everybody. I hope this meeting finds you well wherever you are. Today, I'm really excited. I have Lisa Anderson Shaffer, the author of These Three Things. She's a mother. She is a psychotherapist. She's also a podcast host. She hosts the podcast Joy Is Now. And I just invited her here today to talk about the role that emotions play in our life and sort of the expansion of what emotional states actually look like, not sort of singular, and that they exist kind of in a vacuum. So welcome, Lisa, so much. Thank you for taking time to be with me today. And I just kind of wanted to start out a little bit with maybe if there's some intention you had or sort of the circumstances surrounding when you wrote the book.
So this is really interesting because right before I sent it to you, I was reading the foreword, which I haven't done in a long time. And I'm reading through it and I'm going, wow, I could have written this yesterday, not knowing when the book came out in 2018 that we would be, of course, where we are now. And for some reason, there was something about how I was feeling in 2016 when I started the daily writing practice I have, where I write 3 things I've learned each day. What precipitated that was feeling like I had lost my curiosity. And that is part of my identity, is as an artist, as a psychotherapist, as a parent, as a woman, is just being curious about life. And that had started to wane for reasons that I could see, and also internal reasons that I couldn't. And I think creatively, I needed to birth something and it wasn't ready yet. And so I was kind of in this, I was stuck, right? The arrow was being pulled back and it wasn't ready to fly yet. And so I needed to find a way to exist in that space. And I love learning. I love being curious. So that seemed like sort of a simple contained step that I could take that was very concrete, that didn't involve a lot of excuses or even a lot of emotion. It was like, I'm just going to write 3 things I've learned each day. And that was really about like noticing, reflecting, and also like gathering things that made me happy, like listening to NPR and being like, oh, I didn't know that. That's kind of cool. I didn't know that Crows did that. Or even watching a baseball game and being like, I didn't know his on base percentage was so good, like geeky stuff like that. That really filled me up and made me curious about other things. And that's really how it started. And it carried me through the pandemic. But I was really surprised to see, like, gosh, I felt exactly like this in March of 2020 again.
Can we take a couple steps back really briefly and talk about, so you have a degree in art and therapy, and was there sort of, how did you get there? Can you talk about maybe the sort of inspirations in your youth, or what kind of made you go into both of those and kind of create a life around those particular 2 professions?
It unfolded very naturally to me, but also in a strange sort of way, because I've never been an art therapist. I've been a psychoanalytically oriented psychotherapist only, and I've been an artist only. I've never combined the 2 in a clinical way. But when I was growing up, like, I was one of those kids that, if you ask anyone I have long shared history with, like you ask my best friend Gina, she'd be like, oh, in 2nd grade, I knew you were an artist. Like, we all knew, you just hadn't like owned it yet, right? And so that was, once I figured that out, that was all I ever wanted to do, was, I'm an artist. This is it for me. I don't have any more questions. I get it. And so I had started out at a liberal arts college, at Lafayette College in Pennsylvania, if anyone knows Lafayette. And I had an incredible mentor. I had 2 incredible mentors, actually. One was Curly Holton, who's a printmaker, who, like, such an incredible time working with him. Got to meet Faith Ringgold. Like, he just took me under his wing and introduced me to what it was to be an artist. And another one, whom was Ross Gay, the poet, was actually not as a writer, as a painter. I was one of his students when he was a TA, and he was really integral in me taking art seriously. But Curly pulled me aside one day at Lafayette and looked at me and said, if you want to do this, I can't help you here. And that was like, I started crying, and he was like, it's not that I don't want to, it's that I can't give you, like, I've given you access to everything I can give you access to. If you want to understand what it means to actually be a fine artist, a working artist, you have to go get a BFA if that is what you want. And I was like, oh yeah. It's like, I'm not telling you you don't fit here. I'm telling you as a mentor, like, you need more than what I can provide here, out of all fairness. So it was really hard to hear, but I heard it. And I ended up transferring to the San Francisco Art Institute, which I know we have a shared history at. And I switched to a BFA and finished there in 1998. And while I was there, I'm taking a community arts class, and this woman named Cindy Perlis comes in to talk to us. And she at the time was running an organization at UCSF Mount Zion, which at the time was not a giant world-known cancer center. UCSF was just starting to build what they have now. UCSF Mount Zion was a small community hospital. And she worked for an organization, nonprofit within UCSF called Art for Recovery. And she came and gave this big presentation about doing art at the bedside at the AIDS ward, which UCSF had in the late 90s. There were people in the hospital at Mount Zion dying of AIDS. There were, of course, people going under cancer treatment, infusion, and all these kinds of experiences of health and illness. And her job was to basically just bring them art supplies, not interpret anything, but to sit with them as an artist and make art with them. And I heard her speak and I was like, okay, that makes sense. And so I tracked her down quite aggressively after she spoke, and I was like, I don't know what I can do for you, but I have to like check out what you're doing. So I started volunteering when I was still in school. And then once I graduated, I was eligible for federal and national grants. So for many years, I was a California Arts Council artist in residence at UCSF Mount Zion. And I did murals there. Some of them are still there. I did a lot of work in the breast cancer exam rooms and needle aspiration clinics, trying to sort of give a soft creative touch to the experience people have when they're coming in, and worked with people at the bedside and infusion, just not as a therapist, but as, have you ever made art before? No. Do you want to try it? Yeah.
Sorry. That was my mother. She calls a lot. But I think that's a really interesting distinction between like the separation between artist and psychotherapist. For me, when I was growing up, I oftentimes said that I wanted to be an artist therapist, and people were like, "Oh, you want to be a art therapist?" And I was like, "No, I want to be a therapist for artists," because
yes,
that's really exciting. Not that I don't find, actually, as I get older, the more I'm actually interested in both pretty equally. But so Lisa, we only have a couple of minutes, and I really appreciate you sharing your story on like how I think so many people, this pattern that keeps coming up is they like know they're an artist, but they don't want to own it, or it takes a certain amount of time, a gestation, and everybody else kind of understands it around you, but then you don't really grasp it until you're ready. Going back to kind of what you were talking about in the Instagram live of how you don't get to decide how and when. Exactly. But did you come prepared with a secret for us today?
Oh, yeah, I have a secret. I have a secret.
Okay. Lay it on me.
So I learned to skateboard this summer.
Oh,
that's not a secret, but the secret is about the process of it.
Okay.
I've never skateboarded before.
I don't know why you did that. Keep going.
A little context to this. I'm about to be 46, so I don't have young bones. I'm not, like, concrete hurts a lot. I've learned this. And my daughter she's a fantastic skateboarder. She's been skateboarding for about 3 years. My husband joined her in learning, or decided to learn, probably last spring. So he's been skateboarding for almost a year. And I kind of gave him time to explore. And then I started in July or August this past year. And I love it. But the secret is that I'm never not scared on a skateboard. And that has been a big learning curve for me, is trusting myself through that fear,
I don't know if I could
constantly
do that.
doing. It's terrible. Like I can't, oh, first of all, it's really hard. Like and I was athletic like through my life. I've done a lot of different things, but it was very hard to learn. I was not breaking down emotionally because I was falling. I was breaking down emotionally because I didn't know if I could figure it out, on like honestly how to do it. So I cried through most of the process of figuring out how to do it. I had to move really slow, which is not comfortable for me at all. And I'm still scared. And I think that that is kind of part of the magic of the whole thing, is that it makes me be present in a way because of the fear, the constant fear, that is really hard for me to locate in other parts of my life. Is that like I have to pay attention to what I'm doing. I can't drift like I could if I was in yoga or running or like hula hooping or anything. Like my mind can drift. Skateboarding, it's like I have to be where my eyes are, where my body is, trust my body, which is, I'm terrified of that. That's also a secret. And I can't, I'm being, not doing. There's no doing skateboarding for me. There is being. That is it. I can't get to the doing.
Well, it's interesting to me that you're inviting this fear in and continuing to do it. I mean, obviously that's interesting to you. Otherwise, this wouldn't be a secret. And also the fact that you're still continuing with it, that like exhibiting grit in spite of this intense fear and sort of state of anxiety is pretty cool, Lisa. I'm proud of you for sticking with that. As someone who has stood on a skateboard, I will never go back on it. I shouldn't say never, because if Margaret wanted to take it up, I would do it. But I wouldn't choose to do it on my own ever. But thank you so much. I'm so sorry we're out of time. Thank you so much for doing this with me. Again, this is Lisa Anderson Shaffer. Her podcast is Joy Is Now, and her book, These Three Things, I really feel like is the antidote to the sort of feeling numb and uninspired by life. So if you want to check it out, I'll put the link at the bottom. Thank you so much, Lisa. I hope you have a terrific day. Sorry.
You too.